The Blazers, they are trading Gary Payton II back to the Warriors for 5 second-round picks. That's what sources are telling our Woj. The Warriors are then routing Kevin Knox to the Blazers in a multi-team deal with the Pistons. You got that? Okay, good.
And this happened. Blazers training staff are pushing GP2 to play through Toradol shots. According to Shams and Anthony Slater, Warriors weren't told he was injured at the time of the trade.
Yeah, I don't think that's how that was supposed to happen. Just picture it. During the trade deadline, you get shut down by a certain team you've been trying to make a deal with, so you then give up and move on to another team with one thing in mind. Bring back a fan favorite player that you know for a fact can contribute to winning. And you do end up getting that deal done. And then the next day, you find out that you have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived. Because it would then be found out through his mandatory physical that he was still suffering from an injury that he sustained during the offseason. Which then leads to multiple days of everyone being confused about exactly what just happened and what was to come next. That's exactly what just took place with the Golden State Warriors. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about the GP2 trade back to Golden State, what exactly happened, and what it means for both teams moving forward. So let's get into the video. Ever since last offseason, people had been asking what the loss of GP2 would mean for Golden State in the coming seasons. Losing one of the best perimeter guards in the league, who was also a dangerous lob threat and good rebounder that just helped you win a championship, a player that people often described as a 6'2" center, and a player that Golden State would fail to hang on to in free agency, with luxury tax restrictions preventing the team from being able to offer him the same money that other teams were able to. And he went and got his bag, accepting a 3-year, $28 million contract from the Portland Trail Blazers. And with the loss of GP2 along with a really good 3-and-D wing player in Otto Porter, the future of Golden State was up in the air, but people would give them the benefit of the doubt as they still had their core group of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, Kevon Looney, and Jordan Poole, with them also signing Looney and Poole to long-term contracts the same offseason. And with the addition of Dante DiVincenzo, who was believed to in some ways be a replacement for Gary Payton II. And so, with all that happening, everyone's happy. The Warriors keep their core together, and the Blazers pick up more depth to help Damian Lillard. Win-win situation. Well, not quite. Because after the signing, he would get surgery that same offseason to address a lingering injury to his core. And this point was the moment that everything stopped making sense. Because throughout the next couple months, he would fail to be ready for his estimated return dates multiple times. It was reported that he would be ready for the start of the season, which for the Blazers was just 1 month later on October 19th. His return date would continue getting pushed back until he would finally make his season debut on January 2nd, in the 36th game of the season, in which he would put up 7 points, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 13 minutes of play. And all is great. He would begin to ramp up his play over the next few weeks, playing in 14 of the team's next 19 games. And then on February 9th, he would end up being traded back to Golden State in a 4-team deal. And so begins the most chaotic trade that I have ever seen. Because about a day and a half later, news would break of Gary Payton II failing his physical, revealing that his core injury from last offseason hadn't healed yet, effectively halting the 4-team trade. Now, because of this, people understandably had a lot of questions about the Portland Trail Blazers. Mainly, why was he even allowed to play in the first place? And why would the team hide information about the injury from Golden State? And it got pretty insane. Various articles then came out stating that after that debut game in January, he still felt that he wasn't 100%, that the team had been forcing him to play, and that they had been giving him Toradol shots. However, the team later came out and, of course, said that he was fully healthy and cleared to play, which absolutely nobody believed because, I mean, why should we believe the team in this situation? But the conversation became pretty confusing when his own agent would come out and deny the claims about the Toradol shots. But it is worth noting that he never clarified if he was in fact healthy or not. So the question then goes back to, why would the Blazers not disclose his injury during the negotiation process? Because it is a fact that he failed his physical, and it is a fact that it was due to the injury that caused him to miss all that time at the start of the season, and it is a fact that it is serious enough for him to miss at least the next month before even being reevaluated. So if the injury is that severe, and if they truly had no idea, how how is that even possible for them to miss something like that? Unfortunately, that's a question that I can't answer at this moment in time. The Warriors have since filed a formal complaint to the league, and the entire situation is under investigation. All we know is that Golden State had the choice to either accept the trade and everything goes forward as planned, or rescind the trade and 4 teams are all of a sudden back to the way they were, and pretty much stuck like that until the offseason, which they did in fact decide to accept the trade with all these moving pieces, and everyone is happy, except for them. And we may not know anything new about this for a while, with Warriors general manager Bob Myers saying in an interview that it would be best if he didn't say anything regarding it, and that he doubts he would even be allowed to say anything about it during the investigation process. So that pretty much leaves us in the dark about what exactly just happened. So all we can do is look forward, because the Warriors later said that they do expect him to be back and healthy in time for the playoffs. So with that being said, the question then becomes, what does GP2 provide to this team as it stands? Well, it would depend on what he looks like when he comes back, but if he returns to the player that he was last season, he can be a very important piece on potentially a tough playoff team once everyone is back and healthy. A lot of Golden State's struggles this season have been on the defensive end, which he will help a lot with, mainly with on-ball defense on guards and playing passing lanes. The Warriors are a bit guard heavy right now, but like I said before, he tends to play a lot bigger than he actually is. But that of course won't be a substitute for just having a bigger player. We'll just have to wait and see exactly how that pans out. But he can also provide a pretty important aspect to this team, and that's effort. Because time and time again throughout the season, the Warriors have found themselves pretty much sleepwalking through games, and a lot of times it has come back to bite them. And so when you add a player that seems to never have an off switch whenever he's on the court, it could end up setting a tone for the rest of the team. So I think it's a pretty important addition to a team that pretty much looks like it's just going through the motions every second where they're not on a scoring run. And as for offense, that part is a bit trickier to answer, because Golden State's carelessness in games this season goes beyond their defensive effort, because it is also pretty obvious on the offensive end as well. Between careless turnovers and just becoming insanely dependent on their three-point shot, they've had some pretty preventable losses this season. A lot of those include blowing double-digit fourth quarter leads. And it is a fact that had they won those games that they were supposed to win, they would be sitting at the top of the Western Conference with no concerns whatsoever. And yet, they currently find themselves fighting with about 6 different teams around the play-in bracket. Now, how exactly GP2 will help them on the offensive end is unknown at this point, but he is expected to be another player that can put pressure on opposing teams' interior defense. But again, we'll have to wait and see what he looks like when he comes back. So that's the outlook of the Warriors at this moment in time. But as for the Portland Trail Blazers and what this means for them, nobody really knows, because at this point, nobody knows what the truth is regarding their potential mishandling of this entire situation. One thing that is known for a fact is that they do have a history of mishandling their players' injuries, from Bill Walton in the late 70s to Damian Lillard very recently, with him struggling with a similar core injury for years. And that's the case that a few people have been pointing to, because he had a lingering core injury that had been bothering him for almost 5 years up until this last offseason. He had it addressed and came into this year feeling the best he's ever felt. I don't know how much the Blazers medical staff had to do with that in the first place, but it is interesting to think about, and it is relevant to bring up when talking about a similar situation with a different player. But one thing that is for certain is that other teams will definitely think twice about negotiating any deals with Portland in the future, given how this whole situation has panned out so far. Because as it stands, they are still in question because nothing has taken away the heat that they're currently getting for allowing him to play. Again, things may change, but it's a lot of waiting and seeing at this point. But with all that being said, how do you feel about the Warriors' decision to get GP2 back on the team? And do you think he's going to look like himself when he comes back? Let me know what you think. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.